So we're starting off this little session here with how to use deformations in Maya. It's not by any means an exhaustive process, but essentially you can use deformations to get interesting shapes and curves. So I'm going to use a cylinder as an example for our first one, or all of them, so you can see the difference between the different deformations. So we have this cylinder. I'm going to just increase the subdivisions, because if you don't, you're probably going to get something really blocky. I'm going to carry that up to about 10, change the height to about 6 or 7. The height doesn't really matter. And I'm going to make about 6 of these, so you can see the different T. So one, that's one. Let's make another one. Shift D, make them a little bit further apart. Shift D, Shift D, Shift D, Shift D. So now we have 6. Remember, when you press Shift D, whatever is the last thing you did in terms of transformations to the last object is going to copy that. So the reason why I have an equidistant offset is because I moved it once and then I kept Shift D again. So these are all the same. So first things first, let's add our first deform. And then I'm going to show you an example of how you can apply it. We hit deform, and you have non-linear. If you want to get this thing out of the, what we call here, the mountain or the options, you can actually come up with a non-linear and this is this bar here. So non-linear, hit that, it becomes something that floats. Now I'm going to use this. Now always remember, whenever you have the box here, it gives you options. Anytime you see a box in Maya, that means you can enter something in the box. Right? So first one's first, the bend. If I hit bend, right now you're just gonna see something come up. There's an actual control there. I'm gonna put it back. And when you so when you go to deform, you notice that for some of these options you have this little gridded box. You just click on it and it becomes something that just right there. So I already added the bend to this. If I click bend, you'll notice that inside here, inputs, we have bend 1 and tweak 1, polycylinder 1. What we want to play with for this shape is in the attribute editor, we have something called bend 1. And if you look at it, the curvature right now is set to 0, but you can always increase that curvature, and what you'll get is something curving like this. Let's just jump to that particular one, right? You can create a macaroni with this if you wanted to. Right? So we have curvature, and you can always curve it and it all meets back to 1 point. Right? You have two other things, two other options you see in here. You have something called low bound and high bound. Right now, low bound is at -1. If I move this back, right, I can always to 1 to 0. It doesn't deform that particular one. If I move high bound back to 0 as well, then I have that. So for high bound, 0 starts in the left, and low bound, 0 starts on the right. So if you want to just curve things again, right, you can always select that. It creates that curvature for me. Also the same here with the high bound. Now the thing about it is, when you've done something like this and you're actually on the object, if I move up and down, you notice something, right? It curves around that, right? So that's what works. And not only is it that it's deforming the shape, you can actually create an animation when we get to that part that curves around that particular edge. So if you want a thing to go around a particular shape, you can always do that, right? So that's deformation right there. Now there's more to it than this. If I move this backwards, right, it actually increases the size of the curve. The reason being is because if I click back on my outliner, and you see the bend handle here, the bend handle is here. It's going to bend around that particular shape, right? Which means if I were to bend this And I have the option because it's an object. I have transform options. So like rotate, um, scale, and all those things. I can always play with those. So if I choose to rotate this thing on the x-axis, 90 degrees, right? The shape of it changes because now the deformation is going around that direction, right? And if I push this back, do something, I can do something like this. It actually flips the normals. I can do this, right? And it creates something like that. Of course, you can always come back to this shape and play with the attributes of the bend again still, right? And do something like this, right? So you can always play with bend. I mean, once you're sure of what the shape you want is, you have to delete the history. Right, so let me show you another application of bend, and I'll just undo all this stuff. Right, we just leave that macaroni there. So let's say you are creating a floor tiling set, or you just want something that looks interesting. So I'm going to show you one example we can use to show the same bend. I'm going to use make like things like a well or a circular pattern on the ground. I'll just rotate the circular pattern on the ground. Right, so I'm going to start with a cube. What I'll do first of all is bevel it. Once I bevel it, I'll just increase the or lower the fraction size. Right, hold CTRL for smaller adjustments, shift for bigger ones, increase the segments to have at least a more curved edge, and the depth, that's solely up to you. Depth for me is one. The last thing I'm gonna do is I kind of want to subdivide this whole shape. I'm gonna hit that button and subdivide about twice, creating a very kind of smooth looking rock. Right, and let's just scale this out. So this is going to be one brick for my road, right? And let's say I want more. So that's one object. And I press 3. It doesn't really do much because it's already smoothed out. So this is one. Shift D again for the next one. I'll scale this out a bit. Pull this down. Um, Shift D. Do that. Probably put two of these together here. So, and let's say I don't want to be too perfect. I kind of want some, you know, some stuff happening there, the tile wise. Right? And I can just choose to just lift up one of these and just rest it on top of the other one. And I decide to just, copy this, do it more than once, like this, and I have those shapes. Then I could always come back and go Shift D, move this in, or out, kind of offset it a bit some more, like so, perhaps with something like this. Right, so this, duplicate again, right, another set. Perhaps I'll pull this part back a little bit. But you can always do some craziness with it here. You just move things up and down. Right, maybe I want to put one here. It slips out of place, right? And do some more things like this. Now, when you finish with this, and like these are things that you can actually use to add a little detail to your models, or if you're doing scenes. So let's say we have this, and I'll take a couple of these fringing ones and just put them somewhere else, like over here, and move another one just somewhere else off center. All right, so let's say we have these. What I'll do is just highlight all of this, We're going to combine it as one object. Go to mesh, then choose combine. Now it all becomes one object. What I'll do for this object, right? I'm gonna go edit, and for this one, delete by type history. That way, you don't have only one clean there. Now let's actually add to this or bend, right? So we go bend, and as usual, pardon me? Yes, I did. So once you combine them, you have bend, and by default, bend goes in a particular direction. So if we look at the attribute editor for this object, we have bend 2, right? And you can always change the curvature and it'll look weird like this, right? That's not what we want. What we want is that we want the bend to actually go along the surface of the ground. So we want to change the rotation of this little control point or this little handle here and change it to rotate along the x-axis about 90 degrees, 90. So right now it's flat down on the surface, and what we can do afterwards, I'm going to pull this up a little bit more, right? Select my shape, right? And back to my attribute editor. The curvature, we just do this with it, right? And then that creates a nice little backdrop for whatever it is you want to do. So if you want it to come in more or less, right, you can always do this by moving it out or carrying it in, depending on what you want to do. And then if you're satisfied with the shape of everything, right, you can go delete type by type and then that would be an object by itself. There are no longer any handles to control it with. Basically, you're just saying, I'm satisfied with my shape, that's what I'm doing. And you'll be able to get something kind of like this. Of course, if you wanted to go further than this, you could always use a sculpting workflow and take it into something like ZBrush or Blender or Sculptris or something, and add a little detailing to your rocks, like some cracks and a few crevices, dirt, grain, that whole gritty. So I'm going to hide this now because I'm going to move on to the next thing. So that's one. I'll call this bend floor. So that's why you can use the bend. The next one you have is something called flare. So for the second one, here we have first one. I'll call this CY bend cylinder. This one I'm going to call CY flare. Now flare works a little something like this. I could always hit flare directly, or I can actually come over here. And if I know exactly what I'm doing, then I'll just do something with it. But let's say I don't. I just hit flare. And here's how flare works. Flare has some handles again. And flare by itself has a few things like low bound, right? High bound, which is that. So I'll set this back to 1. And 1 for this one. Or 0. Oh, sorry, 1. Oh, -1, sorry. You have start flare, that's X. If you want to do a thing like this, let me show you what it looks like. You can always flare at X, create something like this, or flare on Z, right? You can actually flare end flare X, right? So if you want to do something up here or here, and you also have the option of curving it, right? So then you can create some interesting shapes. So if you look at the curve, it does things like this. You can make it thinner or thicker. How does that look? Right, so that's the flare. That's what it does. The low bound controls how far it's gonna go. Right, so you have things like this. Like if you want a belly dancing cylinder, you just go like that. And each of these are actually animatable properties. So you could actually animate these if you wanted to. If you wanted a low poly jellyfish, you could do something like that. So you have high start flare X and Z, but it's really the curvature that makes it more interesting. Low bound and high bound. Look, a bottle shape. Yes. And the cool thing is that it has the right topology. If you want to get a bottle shape, right? You're not quite sure how to get good topology, you can actually use these to model with as well. Right? So I will just change these. And if you're satisfied with the shape of this, you say, okay, that looks kind of weird, but interesting at the same time. I can just apply this. Of course, what happens when you rotate this though? Let's check. It does other things, right? So your distortion or your deform, nonlinear deforms are based on the direction of the handle and the direction of your. So I'll just apply this by type, and your handles disappear, and this is now an actual shape by itself. Let's go down the list some more. This one should be most entertaining. This one's a sine. And if you hate math like me, this should be really, really fun. So we have low bound, a high bound, amplitude, wavelength, offset, drop off. So if you want your shape to do a sine wave, you have options like wavelength, you want it to do a thing. And maybe you kind of want this thing to be doing this sine wave thing guys standing in place. You can always just play with the sine handle, move, yeah. Just move it up and down based on where it is, and you just get your sine wave. You have drop off as well, which controls, how much income. There are ways to do it, yeah. Offset wavelength, if you want more of a wavelength, right? And if I press 3 and get my smooth shape, yeah. But mine actually has a water material which does its own little waves and stuff just by just being there. So you can just play with the offset and you get something like this. Of course, if you lower the amplitude or increase it, you can get something else. But offset really just controls how it wiggles and jiggles and stuff. So this can work with almost any shape. Even if the shape of a human being, I could probably show you. Let me just show you one. So I'm gonna add something, and mine actually comes with a few content. So over here, window, we have content. And this allows me to get things like, I like this one. It says, well, no, we just use this one for big tapping knives. Just drag it in there, throw it in there. Right, this fish is huge because it's large. And I'm gonna scale this fish down because it was really big. Yep. So I'll take this fish, I'll move it right here, add me a sine wave. But remember the hand is going up and down. So if we were to just play with this for now, it would be kind of weird, right? If I did the wavelength and I did the amplitude, you get something more like this. And fishes don't move in that direction. So I have to rotate the handle itself. So let's change that actually. So rotate the handle. I'm just going to use the controller. So set this back to 90, and set the z-axis to 90. Right? Now the hand is actually going through the fish itself, and once we actually take the fish now, attribute editor, and play with the offset, I'm sorry, the amplitude, let's find out, shall we? I guess it controls how much influence it has as it goes beyond. So it might start off really powerful and then eventually just fades off into nothingness. So if my drop off is less, so lower the amplitude, increase the wavelength, play with the offset, drop off 0 or 0 here, play with offset, and you get something like that. Right, and that looks relatively, but it's not like we're doing a fully fledged fish animation. But if we were to animate this fish, let me show you how it would work out. I'm going to set my offset to -10, right click, set key, come over to, oh no, oh no, I forgot something. It is a big fish. F4 focus. I didn't save where I had located it. And unfortunately for me, I had some keyframes on there. Yes, ma'am. See? How's that look? You want your fish to be super exaggerative? You could do this. You wouldn't, I mean, that's a needle. You have high bound and low bound. So you just want one part of the fish to be moving. Then you can always play with the high bound and low bound. Not stick thing. Oh, you want to see sign handle in the attribute editor? Hmm. Not sign, sorry. It's sign, yes, it is. Sign handle. Looks like I have two sign handles. By the way, you can combine deformations and different things. That. You can actually click on it then. Click on the sign handle. Okay. So you could do that. Ready for the next one? Squash. Squash is relatively simple. It is exactly what you think it's going to do. If we click on this shape, attribute editor squash. You still have the low bound and the high bound, which tells you what you're going to be affecting. You can also change the factor, how much of a squash on the switch you're going to have. Right, if you want to expand, right? Whoa, that's too much. Slow the expansion rate. Right, and it keeps the volume and all that stuff. So if you're doing a squash and stretch, you can always play with that. Yeah, good. That's squash and stretch. And remember, every time you have a new or you make changes and you feel comfortable with those changes, you can always just delete the history and it will maintain that shape. Now we have twist. And to make twist a little bit more interesting, what I'll be doing is changing my cylinder a little bit. I'm going to extrude this out like so, just so twist is a little bit more interesting. This is squash. Don't worry, everything's being recorded. Next one. So let's put the the twist on this. I think I already did. Twist handle. Right. So here's how twist works. We go to the twist handle, 1. You have the low bound and high bound as usual. Right. Then you have your start angle. It looks like a stylish girl. Like a twist love. You can always do that. You can always play with it. And the cool thing is, if you move the shape again, you get something like this. So you decide you want to play with the low bound and the high bound and make them larger than they are, right? High bound higher. Whenever you move this along this, it starts twisting. And the cool thing is that I can actually, let's say, I'm gonna add a squash to it. And then for the squash, I play with the squash thing, increase the expand, or rather the factor, and you can do stuff like this. Cool, huh? Yeah, when you combine the twist with the squash, you can get stuff like this. You just add another piece to it. So if you know it already has one, you just add another one to it. That's the object, not the actual handler. Yeah. So the last one we have is wave. Let's see what this thing does. We have amplitude again. We have wavelength. We have offset. We have drop off. Min radius, medium radius, max radius, how much of each. So what I'll do for this is I'm going to play with this and I'm going to rotate this because I feel like it will be more interesting the other way. So let's rotate this along this direction, and this is what we get. And if we play with these offset, you get something like this if it was offset. That's kind of weird. Let's get out to play with those and just combining them to get different things. And that's how nonlinear deformations work. There are a whole lot more deformations inside the Maya options, right? We can do blend shapes and all these different things, like sculptures, tension, delta, curve warp, curve, right? Jiggle. But I'm going to show you how to use these four now. All right, I hope you enjoyed that little lesson. So we created a whole bunch of stuff just using all these deformers. I'm going to end this recording session, and that's a wrap, people.